Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, personal finance, and most recently, Bitcoin mining related. Now it's the first week of the month, you know what that means. You've got Anthony Power back to help us dissect January production results for many of the top miners. In today's video, we're going to be covering the big boys, Marathon, RIOT, CleanSpark, and our friends at SATO Technologies. Tomorrow, we're going to be following that up with another January production focused video. Now, before we get into all that, please take a second, hit the like button, you guys. It's a big help to myself, Anthony, the channel. It's 100% free to do, and it helps get this content to other people who may find value. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join, and let us know in the comment section below if you're currently holding shares of any of these Bitcoin mining stocks, what your price target is going into this year's halving, and your top pick for 2024. Now with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, we've got Anthony Power back, our resident Bitcoin mining analyst. As I alluded to in the intro, today's video, we're going to focus on January production results, really from some of the biggest players in the industry. We've also got our friends at SATO Technologies we haven't forgotten about. We'll include them today. And then tomorrow, we've got another stacked roster of January production results. So stay tuned for that. But first things first, Anthony, today we're talking about RIOT. We've got Marathon, CleanSpark, SATO. This is a big lineup. Why don't we start off with RIOT and see what you can come up with for January results there?
Yes, so RIOT, had I'm going to say, a reasonable month. We're still not seeing that production for a miner with 12.4 exahash of operational hash rate. But what we saw this month, we saw a mining company that, having to manage through the weather conditions in Texas, which haven't been great, the demand for energy in Texas, which has been higher. So therefore, when that energy demand is higher in Texas, the Bitcoin miners naturally switch off and allow the domestic supply to make sure they get sufficient energy for that as required. So in terms of Bitcoin mining, they mine 520. Now that's a dip on what they achieved in December. So in December, same number of days in a month, they achieved 619. And we know in December that the rate of transaction fees was about 20% of the actual Bitcoin rewards. That figure was nowhere near in January. In fact, Marathon highlighted that from their perspective, the fees had come down from about 22% down to about 11%. So that drop in fees has affected all mining companies this month. So 520 they mined, but they did utilize their energy strategy as they had been doing for most of 2023. And that brought in power credits of 2.2 million and demand response credits of a further 1.1 million. And if you look at that as a conversion into equivalent Bitcoin, that's an extra 77 Bitcoin. So arguably, you could say that RIOT's production was closer to like 600 mark. But again, it's got 12.4 exahash at Whinstone. So, when we come on to the other miners, we'll see how that fares. In terms of what's happening at the moment, we've highlighted before the Corsicana site is getting ready now for phase one, and phase one is like to deliver for 400 megawatts in 2024. They have the mining machine orders in to cover that there, and within the update itself, they actually put out some, their actual growth strategy for the year. So we've already explained in previous podcasts that by the middle of 2024, so the end of June, they anticipate getting to 20.4 exahash. That's another 8 exahash of miners. And that'll be the first buildings that being energized at Corsicana. But they're now stating now that by the end of the year, they'll be close to 29 exahash. And that's a significant position to be in. So, 12.4 at the moment, but this year, with Corsicana ramping up, they hope to get to just under 29 exahash. And they're not stopping there because we know that they've got a target, and that'll be probably towards mid-2025, so the next 18 months to get to that target of 38.1 exahash. So everything's going on track at Corsicana. We've not had any delays in what they previously stated, but we've been given numbers now for each of the quarterly, half-yearly points during the next sort of like 6 to 18 months. And it looks really, really good.
Yeah, you brought up a couple interesting points there, Anthony. Definitely transaction fees essentially cutting in half this month compared to December. So that's one we talked about in prior videos as I guess a hedge against kind of the halving this spring. The other thing we talked about was alternative revenue streams, and Riot has really taken a unique approach there. Rather than diversifying into other whole areas or HPC AI, they've actually got a power strategy to back them up and bolster that balance sheet. And correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, but that's all optional, right? They have the rights to that power. They choose if and when they turn off based on the economics of the situation. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, they have a fixed price agreement with the energy provider, and that's for a total of 345 megawatts of power. So the site at Windstone, if it was operating at maximum output, that's 700 megawatts. So literally half the full power of that site is in a fixed agreement. Now, we know they have 12.4 operating exahash, and they have some hosting clients in there, so they might be utilizing just the 345 at the fixed rate, because as we know from TeraWulf's update, which we covered in a previous podcast, you know, when you've got a market rate for energy, the price can differ month by month. And you know, we go back to December, back to November for TeraWulf, and it was 3.5 cents as their blended cost. But in January, it was 5 cents. So there was a spike in energy prices, and that spike is considerable because TeraWulf have got, you know, nearly half their hash rate with nuclear fixed power at about 2 cents kilowatt hours. So, you know, you can see that to get it down to a blended rate of 5 cents, it meant that the power was probably in excess of 5 cents for TeraWulf. So again, Riot have a fixed contract for 345 megawatts. If they go over that, they're probably looking at paying, you know, significantly more than that. And that's probably one of the reasons why they're holding back on production. So they can do the numbers. They'll work out when's the best time to switch on and get the return based on the power price. And they're using their energy strategy to great effect again. I mean, we saw some smaller energy credits for November and December, but 3.3 million, that's a nice amount of non-mining to get paid for, and 77 Bitcoin was a nice return on that in terms of equivalency. So yeah, you know, still questions on that, but I think the way that they're setting out their stall, they've been very clear about they'll only do things when it brings in return, and I've got a feeling that the power is more expensive outside the fixed agreement, which means they're not going to utilize as much power at all. And they have hosting clients as well, so they'll need to make sure that the hosting clients are utilized within their contracts, as well as, you know, trying to get as much production out of their own self-mining. But Corsicana on track, looks like a great year potentially for Riot Platforms. Need to get to that sort of, like, you know, that magic. We said 20 is a magic number, so they're going to look like they're going to get there around about the same time as CleanSpark, actually. So the race is on this year between CleanSpark and Riot to see who can get the largest hash rate. They're pretty much like neck and neck at the moment in terms of production. CleanSpark have slightly less, but we'll come on to their update in a short while.
Yeah, boy, are they neck and neck. And I know there's been a lot of questions, comments about Riot in previous videos, Anthony. So we're going to do our best to get Jason and the management team on here and get some of these subscriber questions answered. Next up, we've got Marathon. I know this one has a huge fan following, you guys, so make sure you leave a comment below if you're part of the Mara Club. Anthony, another impressive result this month. Obviously nowhere close to what we saw in the month of December, but I'll let you walk through what we came out with in January here.
Yeah, I mean, there were some impressive parts of their update, and there were some not so impressive parts. I mean, the impressive part is they're continuing to increase their hash rate. So we saw that in December, they had installed 24.6 exahash, and they were, you know, operating at about 22.3 exahash during the month of December. In January, that 24.6 of installed hash rate increased to 26.9, and nearly all that was energized. So 26.4 exahash of the 26.9 installed was energized during the month of January. However, they had some issues again with the cold weather, so they had to curtail. Some of their sites weren't operating as or being utilized as well as they were in previous months. So if we look at the Ellendale site, which was only operating at 51% in the month of January, and also the Granbury site, which is operating at 78%. Now, bearing in mind, those two sites were operating in the high 90s in December. So that's a big come down there. What does that mean in terms of production? We know that they mined 1,847 Bitcoin in the month of December. That figure's come right down now to 1,084. So that's a big drop. That's over 40% reduction in their production numbers. And we've already alluded to the fact that the actual fees, transaction fees, played a big part in that. So they did get a massive chunk of fees. They got the largest, because they have their own mining pool, they had a 22% of fees in the month of December. That number dropped to 11 in January. And also the fact that they had to obviously curtail at some of these sites significantly compared to what they were doing in previous months. So if we look at what their utilization of their energized hash rate in December, it was like 9%, and in January they've it's come down now closer to 73%, and that's from their numbers. Positively, they didn't sell any Bitcoin in the month of January, so they're obviously using this strategy now to try and get their HODL as high as it can be. So the HODL number increased by just over 384 to give them a total HODL of 15,741. That 15,741 has a valuation of 670 million at the end of December's price. Added to that, they've got nearly 320 million in cash. So again, for the second consecutive month, they've got about $1 billion in cash and cash equivalents. So that's a good position to be in. They have got pledged holdings of about 700 Bitcoin, and I can't really see from their update as to what that's belongs to, but that's about 30 million of Bitcoin is pledged. So it doesn't get kept in their sort of like unrestricted Bitcoin HODL. So that's probably covering some sort of payment or whatever like that as a sort of like guarantee type thing. But yeah, it's not. I think some of the Marathon fan club will probably be a little bit disappointed on the numbers this month. In terms of like if we look at the production metric by exahash, it's only coming out at about 56, and some of the bigger miners are getting closer to 60. So it's not sort of like in that sort of like top tier from a production per exahash. But there were a number of positives. They've managed to get Abu Dhabi close to maximum now, so that's a good sign. That's worked over there, so that's been a plan to get that joint venture working. Paraguay is literally just starting, and they'll grow that one there. So we'll see more updates from Marathon with the growth in hash rate. They've got these sites inside their bailiwick now, so they own these two sites that were not operating as well. So we'll see those production numbers hopefully start to increase. I know they put a point in their update to say that they'll look at those sites and in the next couple of weeks they hope to get that hash rate more back to where it should be, back in the 90% range, because it really will help them out as we get closer to the halving. It's all about a mining race now, and they've got that amount of hash rate. They need to get big numbers out there month by month.
Yeah, the Abu Dhabi play is interesting, and you got to think there's a little bit more than meets the eye there. I think there's just so much big money over in the Middle East, and having that exposure in that area of the world, I think, is very strategic for a number of reasons. The $1 billion of cash equivalents on the balance sheet, you got to anticipate they're gearing up for some post-halving M&A, I would think, Anthony. Is that kind of what your gut's telling you as well there?
I mean, obviously, it's obviously ready to utilize in the form of whether they buy more miners or more sites. I just don't know what type of assets they'd be buying in a type of an M&A, not which miners would fit. And we don't know, the impacts of that with regards to the halving or the Bitcoin price. But having that amount on the balance sheet certainly puts them in position one, along with maybe one or two other miners who can, sort of like call upon significant numbers to go out there and increase at a moment's notice. They've got that balance sheet strength there to do that, and I'm sure they'll be looking at whoever falters first. But it's not just a case of going in for any miner. Some of these miners, might not fit within the Marathon way of doing things. So it's also, it's not just a case of they can just go and buy companies. It's not as easy that, unless it's distressed, and they might be able to get companies or assets from companies for cents on the dollar type thing, as we saw with the Celsius assets in recent months. But yeah, they've got the position to do that, and we'll wait and watch to see what happens.
That's exactly what I was thinking, especially as their strategy and that push towards vertical integration continues to develop. Now, the next one, another major fan following, we've got CleanSpark. This is one that a lot of people are really gunning for this year, Anthony, saying they could potentially be the next RIOT Marathon. They're definitely starting to make waves in the industry. Very efficient fleet, very strong production results. I think 577. I came into the meeting today and I was saying, oh, CleanSpark beat RIOT. And Anthony said, no, let's factor in the energy credits. So a close race, even with those energy credits factored in. What do you think about CleanSpark in the month, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, CleanSpark, just seem to generally put out a good update month by month. 577 Bitcoin. Interestingly, they only sold 6.4 Bitcoin in the month of January. So their strategy for this last sort of half of 2023 and looks like early 2024 is to really grow that hodl going into the halving. It could provide a win-win situation if the price of Bitcoin goes up, because it then gives them more better leverage to do whatever they need to do going forward in terms of growing or paying for some of their hash rate, or just having that leverage there to do certain things.
I did think the 6.4 was odd and super specific too. Obviously, they had a certain amount of bill they wanted to pay or something there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll look closer into that and come out with a response to that maybe shortly. But yeah, it does interest me. 6.4 is a small amount. Bear in mind, Marathon Digital sold none of their actual production in the month of January, so they're going to be the leader in that position for the month. But CleanSpark obviously a close second. Another thing that impresses me is the fleet efficiency of CleanSpark. So CleanSpark's fleet efficiency, as they add miners to that, they're already sort of like just behind Marathon Digital, who set the pace on efficiency at the moment. But with their planned arrival of another 4.6 exahash at their Sandouville expansion, which is due to be energized actually from their update tomorrow. So, the next monthly update for CleanSpark, we will see a miner with the second miner, to Marathon in terms of, I'm not saying second miner, because actually Core Scientific are the second miner, but a miner that's probably going to overtake RIOT platforms in terms of, that elite group of 4 miners at the top there. That'll take them closer to sort of like 15 exahash. They've also said that there's a significant amount of miners with the manufacturer doing some testing at the moment, because there was a plan to get over 6 exahash in this early period of 2024. And then a further 4 exahash by sort of like the middle of the year. So that 20 exahash for CleanSpark, is by, mid 2024. So both RIOT and CleanSpark are on a sort of like trajectory here to get to that both get to the same target by mid. And it'll be interesting to see which one actually gets there, because, we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years where a miner puts a growth strategy in and doesn't always come good on that growth strategy. Marathon were about, nearly a year behind getting their 23 exahash to where it was. And other companies also fell foul of putting an ambitious strategy together, and they're not quite coming good at the time it was needed. But CleanSpark have generally, the last 18 months, of the strategies that put out, they've pretty much got to where they achieved. We'll give them the benefit of doubt for this 16 exahash. It's going to be like about 5 weeks later than it was anticipated. So I think we'll give them a benefit for that there. We'll see if the other 4 exahash comes in by the middle of 2024. And then they've also got a further 12 exahash to come through by the end of the year. So that's going to be the interesting part, because, at the moment, a lot of people are saying it's great having the miners on order and paying for them, but where are they going to go? Because we're seeing the Sandouville site being built now over the last sort of like 5 or 6 months and getting ready now to energize. To put that level of exahash in a space, you need to build those facilities. I just don't know where there's facilities that have got the capacity to take 12 exahash at a moment's notice. So, I'm hoping that in their financial update, which is due this week, they'll give some more information with regards to, how they plan to fit out the facilities for this additional hash rate coming through in 2024.
For sure. Yeah, and we'll be interested to see that and definitely update you guys when we get that plan in place. Now, switching gears a little bit, Anthony, we're switching from kind of the big boys now to one of the more junior, smaller miners, SATO Technologies. Now, we actually did a video on them not too long ago, and despite the size of this company, actually the video did very well. A lot of following for this one. Romain, Nazareth, and the rest of the team at SATO seem to have the hearts of investors or retail investors across North America here. So, Anthony, what did you see from SATO that you liked, and was there any red flags this month?
No red flags this month. I mean, production, obviously, this is a smaller miner. So we've talked about three of the biggest miners in this update today. So SATO are probably, from the ones that I analyze on a monthly basis, are probably the smallest miner. So they managed to produce 31 Bitcoin. So it's not a great deal. Some of these miners are producing 31 on a daily basis. So Core Scientific and Marathon Digital generally producing over 30 on a daily basis. So, but one thing I'll say about SATO Technology is what they do with the machines they've got tends to be better than some of the other miners. So in terms of what that production looks like, they're producing. They have a utilization rate of about 95% for January. So they weren't affected by the cold weather as much as some of the other miners. CleanSpark were very close. We're also at 95%. But in terms of production per exahash, they were, second at the moment to Bitfarms. So, a good month for SATO. They sold 22 Bitcoin, so they didn't sell their whole production. They've got a hodl now of about 49 Bitcoin with a valuation of just over 2 million. They've got another 1.2 million in cash. That gives them 3.2 million to sort of like manage as we approach the halving. As I said before, with some of these miners, the issue will be is about growth and how they can manage the growth as we go through. But month after month, SATO have been a very strong company. I think in 2023 itself, they were only beaten in terms of production, monthly production by exahash by the likes of Bitfarms, Iris Energy, and Hive Digital. So they were fourth out of the 13, 14 miners that I look at. So, they've already started January in a very good position as well, looking like they're going to maintain that sort of top 3, top 4 position from the miners. Still got a few results to come through, but I'd say that was a good school report this month.
I would agree. Yeah, we definitely do have a few more miners to report. We know that some are already out, so we're going to get another 3 or 4 out for you guys tomorrow just to keep the video length a little bit more manageable. Anthony, great start to the year for most of the mining companies here. It's going to be an exciting one for sure with halving coming up in April, and then we've got a number of other catalysts on the horizon. So should be a fun year to watch. We appreciate your time today. You guys hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and leave a comment in the section below if you're holding any of these companies and with your top pick for 2024 in the Bitcoin mining space. Anthony, thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody.